I'm living in a van 1,000 miles away from every single person who I knew for the first 28 years of my life. And that isn't loneliness. The loneliness that I'm referring to, I used to feel even when I was surrounded by people, surrounded by love, the loneliness that I'm referring to, it feels like you're constantly dying without ever having gotten a chance to truly live. The loneliness that I'm referring to is like your true self being lost somewhere in the shadows. Other people don't get to meet your true self, and the worst part is, even you don't know who you truly are. But it's here that God has gifted us one of life's greatest blessings. So what is loneliness? What is this loneliness that we feel? It has always been my aspiration to write. That has been my explicit aspiration for the past 8+ years. And before that, my only aim was playing football. And when I was playing football, I did love it and I trained all of the time, but I developed an ego. In the competition of it, I developed an ego. And I looked back in retrospect, and I was always trying to view myself as better than other people. I wanted to paint myself in a light that I could believe that I was better than other people because I was plagued by a feeling of inadequacy. I felt like I was less than. I felt like I was not good enough. And I was trying to overcompensate and live in a way that I could see myself and force myself to believe that I was better than others, because if I'm better than others, then I could convince myself that those feelings of inadequacy were not true. And it's interesting that we use terms such as deficit and disorder. We've got a mental health issue, and we label it attention deficit disorder, which is fascinating because within that there are two derogatory terms that we label people with, which is deficit and disorder, meaning they're at a deficit and they're not good enough. They need to get up literally just to zero because they're even below zero. And they've got a disorder, meaning something is wrong with them. They're out of order. But I truly believe in God, and if you truly believe in God, it's like, well, we are given life. God has created us in this world, and did he just create us to wander around and just exist until our life ends up, or is every single person here for a reason? And I believe every single person is here for a reason. So the deficit and disorder that people would feel in regards to giving their attention to certain places, I wouldn't want to give my attention to school or when I was in high school or in college because I didn't really care about it. It didn't seem important to me. It didn't feel like my life's calling, and I was plagued by something that became an anxiety because maybe only in my subconscious, I knew that I had a limited amount of time, and I wasn't spending my time following God. I wasn't getting closer to God. I was building up an ego, and I was trying to satisfy the world, trying to satisfy what the world wanted me to be. And that is your true self that becomes lost in the shadows. Because writing is what I feel called to do, but then after I stopped playing football, I started writing. But people would ask me what I wrote about, and once again, I would feel inadequate, and I would feel like I'm not a very good writer, so I wouldn't want to talk about it. Because talking about it would mean that I would have to illuminate what it is that I write about, and I thought, well, people are going to think that I'm crazy. People are going to think that I'm insane. But that was my true self, and I've combed over my life, and I've tried to find other pathways, but I don't think I could be of more benefit to the world in any other realm other than writing. And that isn't even saying anything about my quality of writing even now, but it's simply what I feel called to do, to write in a redemptive way. And I think most people have callings like that, things that they feel compelled to do, but they put it off because the world tells them it's not right. It's not what they should do. It doesn't make money. It's not practical. It's not pragmatic. And I've been writing a story about protesters. And in the story, the main character sees protests begin happening, and he doesn't understand why they're happening. And he goes down and he begins talking to the protesters, but they don't even have a clear reason as to why they're protesting themselves. They don't know why they're protesting. And he talks to a few of these individuals, and then finally somebody approaches him and tells him that the protesters have something that they want to say, and they're frustrated. But they don't know exactly what it is that they want to say, but they have a complaint that they want to get out, and they agree with the complaints of the other protesters, even though they don't even know what the complaints of the other protesters are. They just are all in agreement that something is wrong with the game that we've been playing, the social game that society has set up, and the way that life has told you to live. And they are frustrated. They have all boiled over. They are angry, and they're so far away from their God-given purpose, what they could and should do in this world, the good that they could bring into the world, that they forgot. Like a child who has a dream but then walks along a different path, they forgot about the dreams that they had when they were children. And I think that is the true source of loneliness. When you bury down your true self and you don't let others see who it is that you truly are because you're afraid of what other people will think, you're afraid of the perception that you're going to have of yourself and that other people will have for you, that you are just inadequate, and you want to be good enough. You want to fit in with society. You want to not be lonely. But the strange contradiction is that loneliness has within it one of life's greatest blessings. And the blessing that I'm referring to is, people talk about being born. You're born into this world alone. You die alone. But if you think about it, that's not really true, because you come into this world from conception. You are conceived from male and female, your mother and father. You don't really come into this world alone. You couldn't come into this world without a mother and a father. So you are them. You are a combination of your mother and father. But it is true that you die alone. You have to leave this world on your own. So I think that's what we are most afraid of, that we come into this world with a mother and a father, but when you die, nobody can take you to that place. Nobody can walk with you to death. Two people can die at the same time, but you have to go into the place of death completely alone by yourself. And so when you have periods in life that are isolation, where you're isolated, it's an opportunity for memento mori, to remember death and to practice sobriety and to figure out who it is that you should actually be, because I believe that is the most important thing. It's not necessarily what you do in life. It's not even what you say. It's who are you? Who are you when you've reached the end of your life? And so some periods of life we go through isolation and we're alone, and you might be surrounded by other people, and it might be even people that you love, and you're talking to people all of the time, interacting with people all of the time, but you still feel alone. So when you're alone but being surrounded by other people, when you're alone while being surrounded by other people, where are you? This is why I love the idea of a hero's journey, because in the hero's journey, it's a circle. The top of the circle is the ordinary world. The bottom of the circle is chaos, the unknown. And the hero has to, something occurs within his life that he has to go into the unknown. And when you are in the unknown, even if you're near other people, you are on your own specific journey. You have got to get something that is gold that you need for your own well-being. You have to fight a dragon that is your own problem. You have to fight a monster that other people maybe can assist you, but it has to be you. You have to engage with that sort of growth and problem alone. So the hero goes from the ordinary world, the normal world where everything is good and okay. Something happens, he goes into chaos. And when you're in chaos, the underworld, you have to find something that you're missing. There's something that you are missing, or there's something that you have to sacrifice and get rid of. And that is the only way to come back to the ordinary world. And I think one of the fears, the apprehensions that we have of loneliness is because I see people on the streets all of the time, homeless individuals, and some of these individuals are clearly slumped over and strung out on drugs, and it's like they've lost any relationship with their own consciousness. They are barely conscious. They are in a state of something like psychosis. They have fully lost themselves. And so they went into the underworld. They had to go into the underworld. But when they were there, they picked up habits, drugs. They went deep into isolation and started to have resentment for the world and for other people. And that's one of the consequences of going into the underworld. And one of the consequences of being alone is that it's like you can lose all grounding with reality. You can just drift off into the ether, like the Rocket Man burning out his fuels up there alone. Rocket Man burning out his fuels up there alone. And I see these individuals who wander around the streets, and I think that's the fear that we have of loneliness. That's our apprehension to loneliness, is that we don't want to completely lose ourselves, but the issue is that if we avoid going into the underworld, we avoid embarking on the hero's journey overall, then we live a life that isn't truly ours. We exist within the normal world, and we in the order of society, and we pretend that everything is always okay, but it's not okay. But the only way to get out of it is you have to finish the journey. You can't stay down there in chaos, because if you stay down there in chaos, that is a way to lose yourself. You have to finish the circle. And a lot of people, I think we're in a loneliness epidemic, and some people will give advice such as telling you to just go into the gym, go to work on your career, work on becoming the best version of yourself, say F the world, focus on building yourself up, and don't worry about anything else. But that doesn't make any sense, because when you embark on the hero's journey, the whole reason to finish it isn't to get the gold. That way you can just come back to the world and continue living your life the way that you were. You get the gold in the underworld. That way you can distribute it to other people. You can be of value and of benefit to the world. If it were just about having a pleasureful life and aspirations of the ego and pride and accomplishing journeys just so you could see yourself as a hero, none of it would be worth it. You have to bring the gold back to other people. Other people and love is inextricable from the meaning of life. And so when you're in that journey, when you feel completely alone, you need a North Star. And so we use, one example that we use, of course, is the life of Jesus Christ. We use the life of Jesus Christ, and we are like, all right, that is the greatest story. That is the greatest hero's journey. That is the story without flaws. I want my journey to be synonymous with his journey. And if my journey is not synonymous with his journey, if I'm not denying myself and carrying my cross, then what I need to do is I need to put my eyes back on God and evaluate and realign myself with God's will. And we use Jesus Christ as among many other things, obviously, as a North Star to orient our life. But regarding this idea of death, there are a lot of other stories as well. And in The Dark Knight Rises, Christian Bale, Batman, is literally in the underworld. He's in the depths, and he's in this prison that is underground. And he puts a rope around him, and he keeps trying to jump out of the prison. He keeps trying to make a leap, but then when he jumps, he doesn't catch onto the rock, and then it's a sad thing where he's still connected to the rope at least, and it just drops him back down into the prison. And he's talking with one of the men who are down there and who has been down there for a long time. And he says, this man tells him, if you want to make the jump, there's only one way to make the jump. You have to do it as the child did, without any rope. Get rid of the rope. Make the jump. Make the leap without the rope. And so Christian Bale, Batman, climbs up without the rope. They're chanting. And he jumps. He makes the leap. He gets out of the prison, and he lets everybody else out of the prison as well. He drops the rope down. Everybody else can get out of the prison. And that is what death is like. That you have to, at the end of the day, it is just, nobody can do it for you. Nobody can walk you to that place. Part of the purpose of life is becoming who you should be. That way, when you reach the end of life, you can have strong enough faith that you can make the jump without the rope. You can have the willingness to make the jump without the rope. And your faith is what guides you. The actual unwavering belief that you can make the jump, that there is something on the other side. You're going to reach death. You're going to make the jump, and you're going to do it on your own. And at the other side, the gap between where you are right now and where you need to be is faith. And faith is a fascinating thing because faith is synonymous with confidence. Faith is synonymous with optimism. And it is very black and white in this world. If you are full of faith, if you have optimism, if you have confidence, you can do anything in this world. And if you are full of doubt and despair and hopelessness, then that is the actual pain of life. The the physical pains, the actual inadequacies that we have as human beings, none of that really matters. What matters is the lacking of faith and the lacking of optimism. So in that same way, at the end of your life, you have to have the faith to make the jump and go into death by yourself. But life is one big practice for that, and you have to do that on your own throughout life all of the time. Me, I like to write, so I combed through my life and I was like, all right, I want to be of value to the world, but I don't want to be selling things that I don't believe in. The one thing that I can give other people that I would truly believe in is redemptive writing, the things that have benefited me more than anything else has benefited me. And I can't see any other way that I would be able to spend my life. It's not even a matter of rather spend my life, any other way that I could be able to spend my life. And so I've got to figure out how to make that happen. And so for me, I was like, all right, I'm selling everything that I own. I'm going to live in a van. I'm going to make the leap of faith, and it is going to work out or it's not going to work out. But it's forced something that I didn't expect upon me. There's been trials after trials after trials and tribulations, and it's a beautiful thing that nobody could really understand what it is that I'm doing or why. I understand that to other people it would seem ridiculous and not practical, and that I was going to go insane or potentially just die from lack of money and food and shelter and things like that. But I don't feel like I have another option. And there's a certain loneliness in that. It's like the loneliness of other people not being able to understand you. That is an abysmal loneliness. That is a dark, dark place to be. But it's forced me deeper into prayer. More than ever, right now, I look forward to prayer. And I thank God. I thank God. And I feel closer to God than I've ever been, because it's not a diss on other people. It's just, it is what it is. It's the nature of reality, but I just don't feel like anyone else can understand me. But I feel like God gave me this purpose. God can certainly understand me. And God answers my prayers. God renews my faith. God gives me confidence to keep going forward. Even when it just seems like it is futile, even when everything seems futile. And in the Bible, Jesus Christ is talking on the sermon, and he's giving the Sermon on the Mount, and he says, "Blessed are those who mourn now, they will laugh later. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs." In the times of my life where I have literally not been poor, that I was at a massive financial surplus, I was going further away from God because my ego was growing, and I felt like I could and should even just do whatever I wanted, go out to eat whenever I wanted, have a few drinks of alcohol whenever I wanted, spend my time how I choose. But then I made the decision to take this leap of faith that I'm describing, and now I do things only that God wants me to do, because I have felt the pain of fear, of not being the fear of not being understood, the fear of not having my physical needs met, the fear of not being who I should be in this life. And so it took away all the other options, and I had to go grow closer to God. And so for this period of isolation and for this period of not being understood, I'm incredibly grateful, because it has been a contradiction. It's been like a paradox that has reoriented me towards the kingdom of God. And now in my sobriety, and I mean that in terms of not even substance sobriety, like from alcohol and things like that, but just relationship and closeness to God, I realized that the consequences of going throughout your entire life and not using your time wisely, not using your time to grow closer to God, is actually a detrimental act. And I brought up that story that I'm writing about the protesters because so many people know that there's a seed in themselves of who they could be and should be, but maybe they've got golden handcuffs and they're working a job, or they were born into a wealthy family, or they were whatever, and they are surrounded by people and they are following the dictates of the world. They are doing what the world tells them to do rather than what God wants them to do. And it's wild but true that those two things are usually in opposition to each other. What the world is telling you to do and what God wants for you is usually not the same thing. Those are usually in opposition. So if you were to go down the wrong path in your life and forget those dreams that you dreamt as a child and forget the way that you should live and the person who you could be, you would get to the end of your life, and I don't believe that it'd be a trivial thing that you would just look back on your life and be like, dang it. I messed up. I didn't do it. But, oh well, I'm dead now and nothing matters. There's a split moment of regret, and then you pass on to death, and then nothing matters. I think that place of regret that you would reach at the end of your life would only be the beginning. And so the fact that we are alive right now and we have an opportunity to correct the harm and the wrong that we've done to others in the world, but also I really think there's two things, which is the harm and hurt that we bring into the world because of the things that we do, but also the harm and hurt that we bring into the world because of the good that we failed to do. So it's both. You can't just avoid doing things and think life will be okay. There's something specific that you have to do. So if you don't pursue your life's purpose, your life's calling, then so too you'll be in a place of regret and be in a place of bitterness and resentment. So for me, I'm grateful that I have had everything essentially taken away from me. That way I can put my eyes on nothing except God without the veil over my eyes and everything clouding my vision and swaying me in directions that I actually shouldn't walk. But instead, there's nothing in my life because I'm a misunderstood person. So if other people can't understand me and why I do the things that I do, well, there's one entity, one being, one person to go to, which is God. And then you can judge your life the way that God would see you. And when you do that, it's incredibly painful, of course, because we've fallen short. But it is a way to right your wrongs before it is too late. And that is why loneliness is a bad feeling. Loneliness is the feeling of dying without ever having lived. But rather than avoid it and feel sorry for yourself and keep on doing the things that you're doing, it's an opportunity to confront that feeling of loneliness, figure out why you feel lonely, and go deeper into discovering who you truly are. Discovering who you truly are, and most importantly, growing closer to God.